Hey everyone, this is Kieran. Today's exercise is looking at some belly breathing options. So if you feel like you've been struggling to breathe down into your lower abdomen, then this will be a nice video for you to watch. When we're thinking about belly breathing, I think a lot of the time when I hear about it, people will call it diaphragmatic breathing. Now, I've got a video here on diaphragm breathing, and I've got some other videos around, so check my breathing playlist. Maybe I'll link that here, and you can have a look at different sort of options for breathing. I think what is a nice way to start framing this conversation, though, is that there's no bad breathing. There's just different ways of breathing, and our body has a lot of different options for doing it. So our lungs are quite large. There's different lobes. You can get preferential expansion in different areas, and that can change over time depending on range of motion or different illnesses. For example, say you have COPD, and maybe you've lost some of the passive elasticity in your lungs, then you might have difficulty breathing in certain areas depending on where the damage is. But in a general sense, if we're talking about just belly breathing, your diaphragm is involved in all breathing. So you don't have to worry about a particular type of breathing not involving your diaphragm. Where we see that being an issue is if someone, say, has a spinal cord injury between 3, 4, and 5, which is where the nerve starts. It goes down to your diaphragm to give it its motor information. When you see someone having a spinal cord injury around that level, then they may need accessory help for breathing. So we can assume that if you haven't had an injury there, or you haven't had sort of a compromise of that nerve, then we're talking about the phrenic nerve, then your diaphragm is functioning well. So where does belly breathing come into this? Belly breathing is lower abdomen, so I'll demonstrate on the bed in a moment. But in that lower abdomen area, it's typically going to be an area that we breathe when we're breathing slower, bigger breaths in a more, say, relaxed state, typically sitting or lying down. When you're standing up, you're less likely there, and that's a little bit to do with length, tension curves of different muscles, and in different positions you're going to have different mechanical advantage for breathing in different areas of your rib cage and your abdomen. I think recognizing that when the belly expands, it's your organs being pushed down because the diaphragm is losing its dome and flattening, right? Now, as I talk about in my diaphragm video, or the sort of ribcage breathing video that I've linked in through here, when you're breathing the most with your diaphragm, so if you're encouraging the most amount of lengthening and the most amount of shortening, the attachments are through your lateral ribcage here, so you're actually going to be breathing sideways. We call that a bucket handle breath. It also attaches into your lumbar spine. So we're looking at spinal position can affect your ability to use these muscles. If we want to encourage mainly belly breathing, learning any motor skill, it can be a bit tricky in terms of the feedback process, because you need that feedback to say, hey, I did it this way, and I'd like to do it this way in the future, and I'm going to sort of change how I did it, and then you go through that iterative process. And so the feedback's really important. It can be tricky if you can't see the area, because it changes the feedback you're getting. You have to rely a little bit more on sensation. We know from research that when learning motor skills or trying to improve motor performance, that external cueing is more helpful, and you learn faster, and you tend to have better coordination going on. Well, more efficient coordination is probably a better way to phrase that. So how can we do that in this environment? Well, we can, like we said, change position a little bit. That'll change the advantageousness of certain muscles. And then we can also bring in some external cueing to try and help facilitate that feedback. For some people, a barrier is going to be spinal flexibility. So I'd actually encourage using a pillow or something to lift your head up if you feel like you can't lie flush on a flat surface because you haven't got the flexibility, and it feels like it's the neck, but it'll be your upper thoracic area here, not being able to extend and flatten. And I've got a video right here I'll put up about building thoracic extension, and it's a really useful step to learning to reopen your thoracic extension, but also your rib cage, so that it can expand like this during inhalation. So where can we start? Well, we've got two things I'm going to highlight today. One is the hand position. So if I'm here, we're talking about breathing into this belly area. Now, I've developed this skill, but if I were to think about breathing here and I didn't have that ability, I might need to change the position of my arms. Now, the reason for this is that we have accessory breathing muscles. So these are muscles like your serratus anterior, your scalenes, you've got some pec muscles which are involved, you've got all your intercostal muscles which are part of that too, they're the ones between the ribs. With changing your arm position, you're changing your shoulder blade position, and that's going to change how much the serratus anterior, which is that big muscle through the side of the ribs here, can actually contribute. And what we want to do is actually lessen its contribution. So if I bring my arms behind my head like this, what that's going to do is it's going to make it harder for me to breathe into my upper rib cage. So just by nature of the position, I'm going to have to breathe more into my lower abdomen. So I'm not going to think about my breath, but if I just change position and just watch in this area, so if I breathe in, there's some movement there. For me, that's my default because I've practiced it and regained it. If I put my hands into here, same breath, not thinking about it too much. And there's just more movement happening there. Now, that doesn't mean this is a better breath. It just means there's more that direction because there's less up in the rib cage. And to get the same volume of intake, I've got to put it somewhere, right? But if you're trying to learn this skill, this is a nice position. Now, a second thing to think about is some weight. This is a 6 kilo kettlebell. So roughly about sort of 13-ish pounds, 14 pounds. Nice weight feedback, maybe go a little bit lighter. The weight's not as important, the amount of weight as such. Just choose an amount that gives you some feedback. This is just what I had on hand. So what I'm trying to feel is when I breathe, I want that weight to go up. And then just passively letting the weight go, breath go out. I bring in the hands as well. We'll go one more breath. Now, your abdominal muscles do go all the way down to your pubis, so it can be helpful to turn the weight over and get it a little bit lower, just above your pubic bone, and then same idea, breathing down into where the weight is. Cool. So some ideas to play with. One of the things to consider around the hand position for a lot of people, like I said, the thoracic extension ability, is going to be some neural tension. So when you're in these positions, you're starting to get into positions where nerves have to go through a lot of sliding. And a good visual there is dental floss. You know, the floss isn't exactly stretching, right? But it is rubbing against teeth. Now, if you take it to its max length, then or max ability to slide and sort of floss, then there will be some stretch. But what most people will perceive as neural tension as a stretch is that inability to slide against these surfaces or an intolerance to it. So this can be a position of feeling some of that. So you might get pins and needles, tingles, numbness, maybe into the fingers or discomfort through here. That's kind of not sharp, but feels neural tensiony. I would probably not hang out there too long. Likeliness of causing like a big injury is very slim, but it's just not pleasant, and then you might end up with sensitivity, right? Instead, work on that thoracic extension ability, and over time bring the arms in, and you'll notice as you get more thoracic extension, that itself is going to change the sliding capacity of the neural system because it's continuous. So if I move my spine, I'm still moving the nerves in my arm at the same time. So if I can change my spinal position, that means that there's more slack or ability to slide through the upper limb with my nerves. A little more technical, but just a thing to think about if you're getting some of those symptoms. So we've covered 2 options today. It's about trying to make the belly breathing an easier thing to learn. Position can change which muscles have more advantage to breathe down there. And then you can also use a weight for some external feedback, and we know that that's going to improve feedback and improve performance and coordination and help you learn faster. Hope you guys found this useful, and leave some comments below. If you like this video, then please hit like below. Otherwise, to check out more of our content in the future, you can subscribe to our channel by clicking our logo over here. And to check out our latest video, click up here.